I know it's a long time ago, but it was a different time, and we believed, yeah, you know, we're going to win. We're definitely going to win. The one thing you're told when you become a volunteer, there's two things going to happen to you. You'll either end up in prison or dead. So I'd done my best for neither of them to come around, but eventually, all things being equal, I was arrested, brought to the Special Criminal Court, told that I wasn't a special prisoner, I was an ordinary prisoner, but I was in a special court where only special people were tried, and they sent me off to Mountjoy for 2 years.
Mountjoy Prison was opened on the 27th of March, 1850. Built largely through the famine years, through the worst years of the famine. So it was a great achievement here to build a prison of its size here. The sole purpose of building Mountjoy Prison was as a depot for sending prisoners out to Australia. Once you came into the gates of Mountjoy, your journey had started to Australia. Now, in 1853, transportation ceased. It then became a convict prison. It was a radial system, radial prison. It has 4 wings. You have A, B, C, and D. And in the centre of the radial, you have what they call a hub or the circle, and the wings radiate out from that. I joined the service here in 1972, on the 4th of November 1972. I said I'll stick it till after Christmas, till January, and see what happens after that. And here I am, 47 years later, still thinking of leaving it.
Very quickly you realised when you went into the jail, it was a world all on its own. Prisoners were fed 4 times a day. They went to school, they went to work, they did exercise. People said, do you miss it? And I absolutely miss it terrible. You could walk out the gate in the evening and you knew when you went in the next day that all the problems of the day before were going to be different. And they always were.
Bloody Sunday, internment, the massacre of innocent people by the British Army in Ballymurphy had the effect of a massive amount of young people, men and women, joining the Republican movement. There was great enthusiasm and optimism. The Brits were really being hammered in '72, and we really believed, you know, that we were going to win. There was no doubt about that. When I heard that I was, you know, on the way to Mountjoy, I thought it would be like these American prisons that you see on television, you know, there's just these open cell with the bars and it's under constant view, you know. It wasn't a bit like that at all, you know.
The government at the time was a law and order government who, you know, were really cracking down on Republicans. They brought in the Special Criminal Court. They brought in heavy sentences for membership, went up from 3 months to 3 years, that kind of thing.
The court was practically working full-time.
If you were tried in the special court, you were brought immediately to D wing.
The jail filled up very, very quickly. You had the second landing open, and then you had the third landing open. Working in the jail was going to be much different than the way it had been.
The talk was that when the IRA would be finished sorting out the problems in the north of Ireland, they would come down and sort out the problems here in the Republic.
We hadn't experienced anything of the civil rights marches or the burning of full streets and all that sort of thing. It was a time when you really had to learn very quickly and get your emotions in the right place. And basically what you did was, you were in there, you were a prison officer, you had a job to do, and you did it to the best of your ability.
The whole idea is to try and keep your prisoners within the walls and keep the prisoners secure. They refer to even today, it's a safe custody of the individual. That an individual will come into prison and go out in body maybe a little older, but he'll go out in good condition. There's a lot of escapes over the years. The prisoner we had here, he was a trustee prisoner here and he used to be working at the gate. And one day he was sweeping around, the gate was open, so he was sweeping around between the inner gate and the outer gate, and he swept his way out of the gate and left the bush and went. One fellow went out here at Christmas time. He hid in the stores here. There was high windows in the stores, but dropping down to the ground, he cracked his ankle. So he managed to get over the wall anyway, and he got home, and he was in an awful state over Christmas. After Christmas, his mother rang up and said, look, he's here, you better come and bring him to the hospital.
There was the usual sort of unofficial escape committees, fellas coming up with all sorts of crazy ideas for getting in and out.
There was a hole was being made in the wall.
And they pushed some of the stones out off the outer face of the building and managed to get out into the exercise yard.
While this was happening, ropes were thrown over and we couldn't get out.
Now, all that happened before the helicopter came down.
We got a communication from the leadership saying they wanted to get 3 men out.
My name is Captain Robert Thompson Boyce. I'm employed by Irish Helicopters Limited. On Halloween, the 31st of October 1973, I was instructed to fly a customer named Mr. Leonard to a farm near Stradbally, County Laois. We flew to Stradbally and I was instructed to land the helicopter in a particular field near a farmhouse. As we landed, my passenger, Mr. Leonard, got out, and I then noticed a man in a white suit with a coloured street map of Dublin City in one hand walking towards the aircraft. He walked over to the passenger door, which was open, and it was only then that I noticed his face was covered in a light brown nylon material. He put his head into the helicopter, rested his elbows on the front passenger seat, and produced and pointed a .38 revolver at me.
On that day, I think there was 4 to 5 officers in the yard. Just a dank winter's day. You would have had 23 prisoners, and they were walking around in groups of 4s and 5s.
Some prisoners were informed to be in certain places at certain times. When the signal was given, no prison officers were to get out into the yard.
Very, very suddenly, this loud sound of helicopter rotators. The next thing, a helicopter passed over the houses at Inishfallen Parade. Sound disappeared. It wasn't very long. It was very shortly. The next thing we heard the whump, whump, whump again, and the helicopter coming back. And I turned to John, and I said, I think I better put on this, John. Immediately, the alarm was ringing and bouncing around the place.
When they seen it, it's tiny.
The helicopter just swooped in.
And it turned and it came around and it kind of hovered.
Just floated in up the yard. And of course, bedlam broke out.
It was loud. There was dust flying around.
The other prisoners had, by this stage, broke off and jumped on the officers.
There was a principal officer. He was a burly, heavy man, and I grabbed him from behind anyway and held him.
And they pushed us and the gate back into the space.
One of the guys inside it threw out an M1 carbine.
I could see a man in a white suit with what I thought was an automatic rifle, and it was pointing up at us.
The other 2 jumped up into the helicopter. He put the rifle in, and then he half climbed up, was half pulled in himself.
3 prisoners crawling on their elbows and their knees, their bellies, into the helicopter.
Seamus Toomey, J.B. O'Hagan from Lurgan, and Kevin Bell from Taiwan.
If he touched down, it was for a second or 2. The 3 of them were in a flash.
Up they went, massive cheer.
And gone.